The real guides want to share what they know from real experience, not from old documents that have been orchestrated to confuse people. What we have has to be recognized and realized, not memorized and talked about as social phenomena. The different parts of man are a worthy study for anyone who wants to understand themselves from a realistic position. All of this from the beginning with the lower stratum, which is man the animal. He is a physical body. He has a body that gets hurt, sick, and then finally dies and returns to the soil. There is another man inside the physical body, a much finer body. The simple term is the astral or emotional body or light body. When seen by the physical eyes, it appears to sparkle with millions of little particles resembling stardust. It takes shape with the character of the individual and has 5 senses the same as the physical body. When the physical body dies, this body remains as the individual's expression on the astral level. Here we have the first heaven of man, a place where most people feel comfortable with because they are now living in their emotional body. There is nothing wrong with the beautiful astral world, but they are limited and do not contain the same unlimited, self-sufficient positions as do the real universes of the All-Is. Inside the astral body, and quite distinct from it, there is the causal body, which is much finer. It is the real cause of all that is ever to take place in the individual's life. This body is divided into 2 or more strata, each of which is given a different name. One is sometimes known as the mental body, that is a sheath around the real you, and is very sensitive to the impressions from the mind. Its function is to receive and transmit impressions between the mind and the new on one side, and between the mind and the astral body on the other. A perfect record of almost everything the individual has experienced is established from his countless ages of existence. Out of these experiences, character is formed, and from that character, all actions flow. The mind body is the 4th unit or vehicle in the construction around yourself as a man. And finally, the etheric or subconscious mind. These are closely related to the causal body, as it is not easy to distinguish between them. And then down to the astral and physical body. When reaching the Dazwan Dwar region, all your bodies are shed because you no longer need them. Then you leave your mind at this level as you travel further, and so you are no longer restricted by any instrument. This is where you know all things by direct perception. Now you are free from all the lower vehicles, and the real you has the awareness of knowing directly anything it needs. From this point, you can take in the knowledge of the lower realms. Last of all, we come to the real you inside the man. The new, or you-tune, the old term is soul, which is linked into the first 3 levels of unawareness. This is the very core of your being, the real you. Each person has all of these vehicles, physical, astral, causal, mental, and etheric, while living here now. All the lower units, which are instruments, you will discard one by one as you advance upward. This is because you will have no need of them on the higher levels. each vehicle being suited for expression only upon and in a particular realm. The new is the real you that is hidden inside all these bodies. This is the spark from the real sea of light. You are actually a brilliant being of incredible awareness from the unlimited ocean of the great reality, the all is. It is with the real you that all real awareness resides. Everything below it, such as the mind and the other limited bodies, are unconscious, automatic, and mechanical in action. Everything in existence is entirely dependent on the sound and light reality for its life and activity. Even the humblest plant or the smallest insect. These body instruments are simply for making contact with the coarse nature of the lower realms. It is for this reason that the all is cannot manifest in the lower realms, because a material body is needed. So it sends the sound light reality of itself into the golden position of the new man. There is no place in all of life where there are no you-tunes. Some have better minds and bodies than others. In this respect, there is little difference between an amoeba and man, between an insect and a savant. All are from the is and equal, except for their amount of perception. The evolution of man is incorrect according to the scientific community. From a physical standpoint, it would seem that man evolved from the apes, but this is not true. The idea does sound interesting, and there are so many who want to believe it to be so, but no. There is no truth to what the intellectual minds agree to. The real you has gone through millions of lifetimes of different embodiments to finally reach the human vehicle. Each one of us have been almost everything that can be considered, so that we can gain a multitude of viewpoints within our endless worlds. We have all been the smallest of things, from an amoeba to a plant, and then the birds and animals, and finally a person of this world. All of us have been humanoid on so many various planets and star systems. We have ended up here because this is the final hour for all of us. Once our missions are done here, we will enter the real universes. The religious orders have their own ideas about the living creatures on this planet. They cannot see the reality in all things, only themselves. Life is awareness, and becoming more aware, it cannot be anything else. Now, I have moved you along to the understanding of the new. From here we go to the mind in the very center of all worldly situations. In the Brahm Lok, the mental world, the mind is acquired. When you make your descent from the higher levels into the cosmic mind worlds, you pick up the mind in this region. A small part of this cosmic mind is detached, so to speak, and is joined to you, not in a permanent union, only temporary. It is wrapped around the real you, and at the same time obscuring much of the light and hampering its activity. When you have taken on this mechanical vehicle, which is actually a handicap, You begin your career in the lower regions of mind and matter. Through this process, the individual begins to accumulate experience. The mind is not self-conscious, nor self-acting. It has no power of initiative. It is simply a machine. As a machine, it can be made to do what it is intended to do. It will never do anything different than what it is fashioned to do. The Western teachers have taught that the mind has powers of origination and initiative, but this is untrue. The mind and the real you have been greatly confused in Western psychology. Everything originates and is initiated from the reality of the sound and light and the real you. Only the negative power and their subordinates have minds, like humans. Everyone can learn the difference with their real awareness, the real you, about the mind. The mind is really no essential part of the real you at all. It is created simply to make contact with the material regions. Otherwise, it is a bothersome thing to deal with. The mind can be a useful instrument, provided it is kept under control. It is a very good servant, but a bad captain of your ship. Many have been taught that the mind reasons, but it doesn't. It can carry on deductive processes, but has no power of induction. This is often demonstrated in the cases of hypnosis. If you give the subject certain premises, no matter how absurd they may be, a person will act upon such premises with automatic deductions. Such a mind has no power of synthesis and rational induction. The new alone has the light in it and can work independently and rationally. You only have to observe a little the action of people to see for yourself that some act more like machines than they do as rational beings. They are moved by their mind in grooves, just as they have been taught to act. It is a rare individual who does independent thinking, and when they do, the sound wave of life has motivated them. The all is real. It alone knows all. The mind is divided into 4 parts, which are functions or modes of action. The first part recognizes form, beauty, color, rhythm, harmony, and perspective. It enjoys these things, and what it doesn't like, it rejects. It receives impressions mostly through the eyes. Then it passes its findings on to the thought process, which in turn reacts accordingly. The second part deals with the senses of smell, taste, hearing, and feeling. Its chief function is taste. It likes to taste, relish, enjoy, and then rejects what it doesn't like. Feeling and taste are practically the same thing. All of its reactions are automatic. Third is the intellectual function, which the awareness of the real you uses for thought. When empowered by the true reality, it produces what we recognize as thought and discriminates and decides. It passes judgment upon all the findings of the other 2 faculties. The fourth function or faculty accepts the decisions of the other parts and executes the mandates. This part is the executive faculty of the mind. It is also the I-ness of the individual by which you can differentiate the real you from all else. It is also what enables the individual to distinguish between his own interests and that of others. When this part of the mind becomes exaggerated, the appearance of vanity or egotism comes forth, making one more human. The idea here is to not condemn nature for what we have to work with, but to understand and obey it. It is man's best friend if you first learn to obey. With understanding, you work in close cooperation with nature to your best advantage. There is practically no limit to the powers of the mind, but very few people know this. It truly is a good thing they don't, because most people are not ready to take on the responsibility. Those who have performed miracles for the public find that they will have to be responsible for what they have done. The miracles of the mind that have become known through history were not always performed for the best interest of the whole, but were done for the personal audience. We are to control ourselves with the secrets of life, so that we do not interfere with what is naturally taking place. Those who have forced their way through society to have their own way have left their marks all over this world. They are the ones who do not obey nature, but actually have put it to ruin. They are the lawmakers and the developers who are not concerned except for what they can profit from. Human life to them is nothing, let alone the land, air, and water. Today, the battles are waged for real estate and oil, and those that stand in the way are taken out without a blink of an eye. This is an example of minds out of control, and so it is that they will not know the real and wonderful secrets of life to all is. The essential point here is that the mind is a very great power and must be kept in control. It can do miracles that are of a great benefit when rightly used. Whenever any of the 5 passions of the mind are allowed to run wild, a force that was meant for good has been turned into an instrument of destruction. No faculty of the mind works itself, because it is motivated by the real you, and is as automatic in its actions as a stick of dynamite. It is only when the real you takes control that the mind is directed in safe and sane avenues. It may then be compared with a fine car that has a good driver at the wheel. Every stimulation of the mind with its functions can create thought forms which are seen on the subtle levels. Thoughts are things, just as much as clouds, cars, or houses. The 4 faculties of the mind, when set into motion by any sort of stimulus, begin automatically to create thought forms and set waves into motion. The mind will do these things with the regularity of chemistry or machinery. It works in this pattern and can do nothing else but this. It has no power to originate thought, nor can it reason upon any proposed course of action. I am very aware that this is all contrary to Western psychology, but very few of the modern systems understand the real workings of the mind. Habit is the chief method of mental action. Habits are likened to grooves in which actions run. The first thing which mind does after it is agitated and brought into action is to establish a groove, which you call habit. Man is usually a driven slave of habit and custom. Many of the traditional so-called customs experience on the earth are really people who are bored and are not willing to take the time to discover what is real. When Christmas, New Year's, or most holidays arrive, what do humans robotically do? They get intoxicated because they are bored. The mind resents innovation, dislikes change, and accepts without question what it has been taught to believe as truth or what is right, according to it. Here is a fact of human nature, and that is when a person speaks or writes about their belief or what they believe, they are working in the area of what the mind has been indoctrinated with from the contrived belief systems. So, as I have gone all around with this, I'm coming back to what has been established by the minds of society for others to accept as some kind of a truth, when in fact it is all a phenomenal puff of smoke, like that of the political platforms that run their campaigns on hope. The controllers of the existing systems know this fact and know how to motivate people into staying conditioned for their cause. The mind adores routine, and it can be trained to a very high degree of skill in a given line of activity. Even with an assigned routine from the mind, the real you will finally wake up and see what is taking place, but usually will not interrupt the cycle of unawareness, because this has become its way of life and truth, even if it knows it is headed for self-destruction.